Welcome, everyone, to the Credible Nerds podcast. My name is Justin. I'll be your host today, and I have my fellow nerd with me, my fellow Star Wars fan, Nathan, is joining us today.
Hey, everyone. Good to be here. Thanks, Justin.
Yeah. So today we are going to be revisiting The Mandalorian. We'll be discussing Season 1 of The Mandalorian, Episode 8, the final episode of that first season. So we're glad to be talking Mandalorian, be talking Star Wars, and kind of revisit that and break it down and talk about it. So thanks for joining us today, and we want to encourage you guys to subscribe to our podcast, our YouTube channel, so that we can, get those numbers up and get more people interested in what we're talking about. So if you like it, definitely subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything. It helps us out. So, do that when you get a minute and like the video. Make comments underneath, the comment section. If you like what we're saying or have questions about what we're saying, definitely comment and join in the conversation. We'll answer and go back and forth. So for me, starting this episode on my rewatch, it'd been a while since I'd seen this episode, probably at least a year. I think I did a rewatch when season 2 was going to start up about over a year ago. And so I rewatched it. So it's been a while for me. But while I was watching it, I remembered some things and, just the overall feel of this episode. I kind of got excited for season 3. I mean, I was excited anyway, but I was excited to revisit this storyline and to watch season 2 as well. So for me, it was a pleasant rediscovery of how great this show is. And a lot of it's due to this episode. We find out some cool information more about the Mandalorian. We get a longer flashback. Up until now, it was just short flashbacks, and this is kind of bringing it all together. So I was happy to see that they revealed some new things in this episode. For you, Nathan, as far as revisiting this episode, what did you think coming into it again, to see it again?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as much as I did, the first time I watched it. And I enjoyed other reveals and some of the backstory that was brought up, and as always, how all the different layers of all the different Star Wars stories and sagas from the series, the TV series, the animated series, and of course the the trilogies of both 1 through 3 and 4 through 6, how it tied all that in together and all the references. That's the thing. That's one of the great things about Star Wars, is how all the stories interconnect, and how you can find ties to all of them and those characters, and is what, it really draws you into the Star Wars universe. And of course, this series and these the production value of these shows were definitely on par, and a great to rewatch and revisit.
Yeah, definitely. We've been talking off and on, and I think we brought it up in a previous episode of our previous review episodes, which, by the way, this is our first video review podcast of The Mandalorian Season 1. So all our previous reviews are audio only, but you can find those on our website, crediblenerds.com. So definitely go back and check that out. But for me, we've talked about it before, is just kind of keeping everything straight, because there's flashbacks. This takes place after Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, but there's a lot of topics that are brought up that happened in the prequel timeline. So it's just kind of balancing and trying to figure everything out. It can be challenging sometimes, at least for me. I really have to focus. Okay, this is post Return of the Jedi, so this is the Empire has fallen, but yet we have a pretty strong Imperial presence in this show, at least this first season. So do you ever kind of find yourself in that mindset too, like, okay, I got to focus, and where is this happening? When is this happening?
Yeah, absolutely. My mind tends to want to plug this series in between 3 and 4, but as we know, this is post 6, Return of the Jedi, and about, we understand it's 5 years after. So yeah, I do struggle with that sometimes, especially in hindsight, as they bring out other seasons and other episodes and add to the saga and add to the series. You're getting more, as they come out with more TV series, you do tend to get a little lost, and these standalone movies as well, and Rogue One, the Solo story. So you do have to kind of sometimes, at least I do, I have to kind of think to myself, okay, what exactly is the timing of this, so you can keep it all straight. Because what you want to do, at least what I want to do, is I want to think to myself, okay, when this is happening, other characters in the Star Wars universe, where are they right now? Are they alive? Are they dead? And how old are they? And what would they be doing right now?
Yeah, where's Han Solo? Where's Luke? What's the status of the New Republic?
Exactly. Yeah, because we know Luke would be alive. We know Han Solo would be alive, and Leia, and really everyone that from the original trilogy. So where are they and what are they doing? That's the big question on everyone's mind, especially when this series came out. And that was the big question: is are we going to see any characters from any of the original movies? That's something that you're craving to know when you're watching these, or even hear about them, even a reference to them.
That'd be cool. So maybe we'll get some future appearances of the main characters in the future seasons. Who knows, right? But for me, this episode picks off pretty much where the last one left off, and we have our heroes. They're kind of pinned down in one of the cantinas in town, in that main town that the Grief Karga lives in. And at the end of the last episode, we had our new villain, the kind of the man behind all this stuff that we've been watching in previous episodes. He shows up in his TIE fighter, and it's Moff Gideon, a new character that we hadn't really heard about. And so they're there, and then we had Grogu. He ended up being captured at the end of the last episode, and so we're like, oh, what's going on with him? Is he all right? So this starts off with these two Imperial bike troopers. They have him, they've kidnapped him and captured him, and they're on their way back to the main town to return him to Navarro. And this is where a lot of outrage when this episode first aired, because these Imperial troopers are pretty mean to Grogu, to Baby Yoda, and beat him up and punch him and things like that. So you actually do kind of feel bad for little Baby Yoda there for a minute. So
I believe the actor is Jason Sudeikis, and I heard that he got a lot of death threats for punching Baby Yoda, as we call him at this time. And it was pretty funny. What did you think of that scene? What did you? I mean, I appreciated the comic relief in some aspect, but they were punching him pretty hard. I mean, it was kind of like would Baby Yoda really be able to survive some of those poundings he got? And of course, the classic when they pull out their blasters and they're trying to shoot something on the ground like 10 feet away, and they keep missing. The old adage, they can't shoot.
That was good addition there. I thought I mean, you feel bad for Baby Yoda, but at the same time, it's like it shows you just kind of the state of the Empire, what their mindset is. They don't care about helpless things. They're just there to take over and get what they need and move on.
Yeah, the impression I got, though, is that they didn't look at it as an intelligent or I don't know what the correct term would be, but the impression I got is they looked at it as more or less a pet, probably couldn't, with limited intelligence, like we would be consider a household animal, something that's people don't necessarily, some people wouldn't show a lot of respect to, but because they obviously didn't. They just a backyard animal, and even. Even once suggested that maybe Moff Gideon wanted to eat it.
Was there to kill it and eat it.
So So I guess from that perspective, but of course from a viewer's perspective, we've grown up. We've spent all season knowing that it's an intelligent being that and not just something that like a chicken,
Yeah.
being raised in someone's backyard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was a little cringy watching. I cringed a little bit when they started punching the bag, but it was pretty funny when he bit the trooper's finger there.
Yeah.
Bit back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get a hold of, for some reason they stop outside of town, but they're trying to get a hold of Moff Gideon to let him know they have the package. They've secured the bag, the bounty or whatever. But so they have to talk to someone who has to talk to Gideon. And the someone is like, oh, I'm not talking. He just killed a bunch of troopers for being incompetent or something. So this guy's like, oh, hold on a second. Wait till he cools down.
Yeah.
So they're sitting there waiting. That's when they start shooting the blasters and stuff. And then they call back and they're like, hey, what's going on? What are we doing? And it's like, well, he just killed someone, so I'm not going to talk to him now. So they don't communicate to Gideon that they have captured Baby Yoda at this point. And that comes up later. We'll get to that, how that affects the rest of the story. But key point there. But IG-11 shows up. He overtakes these troopers and just, kills them basically.
Yeah.
So the audience is happy now because the mean guys have been taken care of. And he rescues Baby Yoda and they go flying into town. And this is where we have a pretty cool sequence of IG-11 just, putting things on autopilot, puts Baby Yoda on his back so he doesn't get shot and just starts blasting troopers.
Yeah.
Which is pretty sweet sequence there, I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, before that happens, of course, we have Moff Gideon kind of give his speech to our heroes who are stuck in the salon. And, he starts revealing, we learn that he knows quite a bit of information about them. How do you think he knows so much about them? Any ideas?
Yeah. I mean, the Mandalorian Din, he kind of says, well, he knows, like he reveals, oh, Din Djarin, you're here, and Cara Dune, Republic Shock Trooper, you're here, and all this stuff. So he does have this info, and Din says, well, the only person that knows my name it's located on Mandalore, like in the databases or something. And so he took over Mandalore, so he's the only one that would really know. So, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But how does he able to, like, of all the people in the databases, all the Mandalorians, he's like, oh yeah, it's this Din Djarin guy. Yeah. So how does that happen? I don't know.
Yeah, I can only assume that, from the very beginning when the Mandalore, which we now know his name is Din Djarin, was hired, he was hired by a character that we understood to be the client.
The client.
And we now realize that he was actually, the client was more than likely working for Moff Gideon. And Moff Gideon probably, obviously Din Djarin probably had a reputation. And if there was anyone who could get him, Grogu, and do it without bringing attention to Imperials, it would be, through this channel. So that would be my assumption as to why they did it. It was done that way. And so he obviously must have had a reputation that Moff Gideon was aware of. But how he knew about Cara Dune and her history, who knows at this point. But some pretty big reveals when he went and iterated their history and all their experiences, and we learned some pretty interesting things at that point.
Yeah. And they also reveal stuff about Moff Gideon, Knight of the Thousand Tears. He conquered Mandalore. He was a key player. They thought he'd been executed for his war crimes, but obviously he hadn't because he's standing right there.
Yeah.
So we learned, it's a lot of reveal there in that, few minutes of dialogue that we get.
Yeah.
Which is very helpful because that was a lot of the questions leading up to that episode. It was like, who is this Mandalorian? Where is he from? What's his name? And with the flashback, we get the Clone Wars era flashback where his parents hide him in the bunker.
Right.
And then the Death Watch shows up right before he's about to get shot, and they rescue him. So there's, a lot of information, like you said, coming out in this episode, which is great to see.
Yeah.
But it left a lot of questions.
It did leave
We
a lot
got
of
the
questions.
information, but then there's more question, which is
Yeah.
awesome storytelling.
Yeah, again, it makes those ties, but then makes you start wondering how is it all connected, and especially in a timeline perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But this kind of brought up one scene, or during this scene, I did admittedly had kind of a what's the word, grievance, and that is I didn't quite fully understand why Moff Gideon would give them an ultimatum, or basically like negotiate with them, to basically give them to sundown to come out. Otherwise, he was going to level the building and more or less kill them.
Yeah, they set up the weapon, and they're all scared. Like, well, I'm giving you till sundown.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
he knows. We understand or believe that he has sent the bike troopers out to get, or at least to investigate, to see if Quill has Grogu, because he could probably think. Moff Gideon's no dummy, and he can probably assume that if that they would probably have him hiding somewhere
On the ship
or something.
Yeah.
So he sends out these bike troopers out to go investigate. They see Quill, they run him down, they get Baby Yoda, but we understand, or it appears that they're not able to communicate that he has him. But something that I kind of wondered during that time is if that was a possibility, it seems like Moff Gideon wouldn't have stood there and given such a long speech and kind of monologued.
Yeah.
You think I would have thought that he would have been like, before I go and stand here and say all this dialogue,
Yeah.
I'm going to find out if those bike troopers did in fact find the prize.
Yeah.
That I was getting for. That part, it kind of made me pause for a minute. I didn't feel like, it didn't really make sense to me that that's the way he would operate. It just seems like he would be like, all right, I've got these guys cornered. I don't know if they've got Baby Yoda, but before I level the building and potentially kill what I want, I'm going to see what the situation is. And maybe he's just buying time. Maybe he's just like, hey, I'll give you guys till sundown to make him sweat until he finds out.
I think that's what it was. He was stalling to hear back from those guys, his troopers that he sent out. Did you do it? Did you get him?
Yeah.
And if not, then he has to keep them alive so he can capture them, or torture them to get the info or whatever, that type of thing.
Yeah.
The way I took it. But it does seem convoluted, like this has to happen, but there's this guy in the middle who doesn't want to talk to the boss because the boss is mad.
Yeah.
That seems kind of,
Yeah.
in some ways it's kind of funny, but in other ways it's not very efficient.
Yeah. I just think Moff Gideon would have been like, before he went and did his monologue, he would have found out what's going on with those troopers before he...
Yeah, be like, hey, has anybody heard from so-and-so?
Yeah, before I
they
stand
called
out
me.
here and, give this big speech so I know where I stand. Because he kind of seems like he's just operating in the blind there, but whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, unnecessarily convoluted, or too many steps, I think.
Yeah. But it was really interesting. We learned, I believe this is when we learned the Mando's name, Din Djarin. We learned that Cara Dune is from Alderaan, so we can understand her deep-seated hatred for the Imperials. So, really interesting. And that, and also some of the Easter eggs, like in episode 4, the sewer drain, and trying to cut through the sewer drain so they can escape into the sewers. That kind of was a little bit of a reference to the original episode 4 when they were in the jail on the Death Star. And so I could appreciate that. And, they bring in, of course, and they discuss Moff Gideon obviously was there in some capacity in the Purge. So, we've got ties to the Clone Wars. so I sometimes, you know, they bring in these villains and you're like, where was this guy, you know, in the, you know, in the movies, but you know, obviously that can't be always accounted for, but yeah, it was great scene, great episode.
Yeah. And maybe, I mean, because of that monologue, we get all this information. So maybe they're like, well, we got to have this scene where Moff Gideon tells us all this cool information. So how do we write around that? You know,
Yeah.
that's the key. And so they have to figure out a way to present that info somehow. And that's why we get that sequence. So
well, that's storytelling, right? I guess.
Yeah. But
so then IG-11 shows up,
shows
starts
up.
blasting. Of course, they use this as an opportunity to fight and maybe escape. They bust out of the saloon. They start shooting back, and but things don't necessarily go the way you hope, do they?
Yeah. And this whole part, I was like, I kept thinking, why do stormtroopers wear armor? Because IG-11 shoots him once, the guy like right here, and the armor doesn't even go like turn black or get broken. The guy just falls down and it's like, oh, he's dead.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what's the point of having this protection?
You see that well, and all of the Star Wars episodes, you seem like you see troopers get blasted, you know, with one shot and they fall to the ground.
Yeah.
So is it really armor or is it more or less just a uniform?
Yeah.
Because it's
Intimidation techniques or something.
And because it doesn't really seem to have any effect on accomplishing what we think it would accomplish. I mean, the helmets, you know, the suits, what purpose do they serve? Because troopers are getting blasted left and right and falling to the ground with no problem.
Then our heroes can get shot and or even like in other stories, they get stabbed and cut in half and they're like, fine.
Yeah.
No armor and they're fine.
Yeah.
But I remember watching A New Hope in theaters as a young child, 4-year-old, maybe 5-year-old. And the original cut was when the heroes dress up in the stormtrooper armor and go to that room to find Princess Leia where she's at. They shoot those officers when they come barging in. And I remember those guys had holes in their chest from the blasters, from the laser bolts. And I was like, I remember thinking, whoa, this movie is serious. These people getting killed.
Yeah, big black.
And it affected me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I also read later that they kind of dialed it back or did something to make it so it's not so brutal.
Yeah, I think I recall that.
Yeah.
That you mentioned that.
I want to see that. At least with the armor, right? At least have a hole in the armor, not necessarily have to see a hole in their body.
Yeah.
But, you know, so
I think there is a deleted scene or cut small tidbits of that scene that were cut out where where they showed I think when they re-released them in the 90s, I think that they edited that scene a little bit.
Yeah.
And you don't see what you saw in the original theatrical release. I do now recall that you mentioned that there were little half seconds cut out where the camera pans to, you know, a wounded stormtrooper and you would see what you just illustrated, and that's now you don't see that anymore.
Yeah.
I think that's true. I'll have to, you know, fact check me on that, but I think I think I recall that.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, the stormtroopers, their armor is not very effective, but so the heroes, they take that chance, like you said, to cause a disturbance, perhaps escape. But there's just too many stormtroopers. I liked how they had, you know, the regular white stormtroopers. They had the biker scouts. They had the death troopers that we first saw in Rogue One. They had the Incinerator Trooper. You know, so they have all these different types with different roles, and it was pretty cool to see them all working together because I don't think we really saw that many working together up until this point. So,
and I think if I'm not mistaken, you know, they mention that when Moff Gideon arrives, that he has a bunch of troopers that were already there killed, and the understanding was, to me at least, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that, you know, a lot of those troopers probably were not affiliated with the Empire, were with him. They more or less were just kind of like working. They were there on the planet and kind of basically were now soldiers for hire and helping guard the client. I think that because, you know, their armor's dirty. Yeah. It looks like that they've kind of like where this you get these new troopers show up, and they're shiny, bright, white, and clean, and they've got
more disciplined,
and they're acting like soldiers.
Yeah.
Where these guys, the contingent that was there, seems like they may have been more or less just outlier guys that have just been around for years and weren't really, basically just working for the client.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sounds like when Moff Gideon shows up, he just basically has all those guys killed and wipes them out, gets rid of them.
Yeah, those two troopers, when they're trying to communicate to the client or to Moff Gideon, that's when they say, "Yeah, you just killed all these troopers."
Yeah,
that's probably where that came from. So, but yeah, so the guys they can't defeat all these new troopers because they're more disciplined and more firepower. We had the scene where they set up the E-Web. That's a mounted gun to take them out.
Mm-hmm.
But that's Din Djarin grabs that and starts using that just without the stand to try and escape. But Gideon blows up the power pack or the battery ammunition pack or whatever it is, and that's when he gets hurt.
Yeah, he gets hurt.
And Cara Dune has to come out and grab him.
And they pull him back, and they're all back in the saloon again.
End up back where they were, yeah.
Yeah, but this time IG-11's with them, right?
Yeah, with Baby Yoda.
But yeah, Mando's hurt. It's not looking good. What'd you think of that scene when he's basically telling them to leave me?
Yeah.
I'm done for.
Yeah.
It's the kind of the stereotypical.
Yeah.
I'm hurt. I'm wounded. I can't
go on without me.
Go on without me.
It's like when C-3PO loses his arm in A New Hope from the Sand People, and he's like, "Go on without me. It's okay."
Yeah.
And then no.
Yeah. We see that in a lot of movies, don't we?
Yeah.
The traditional, I'm hurt. I'm done for. Go on without me.
It's usually the hero.
Yeah. And then there's like, I can't leave you. We can't leave you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little cliche, but
Yeah.
but
A lot of cliches in this movie or this show, which is kind of good because a lot of Western stuff, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Brings them back. It's not it doesn't hit you over the head, not over the top, but they're there and you can kind of like, oh yeah. You kind of throwbacks to older movies and stuff, which is great.
Yeah.
So I like it.
So, but then what happens next?
So the Incinerator Trooper comes in to just burn him out. Moff Gideon's done. He knows Baby Yoda's in there, which is counterproductive to what he was trying to do in the first place, to capture Baby Yoda. Now he's just going to burn him out, kill him.
Yeah. Again, it brings up the original question. I don't. Seems like some of the actions he takes are contradictory, but we don't really know at this point in time why he wants Baby Yoda. What we can only assume, But yeah, to send in the Incinerator Trooper in there and just fire them all, burn them all, doesn't seem like it would be a wise choice.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, he was acting on his own. But we see the fire trooper go in, and what happens?
Yeah, Baby Yoda uses the Force to push back the fire and send it back to the trooper and blows him up, basically. And so they take that opportunity to escape. IG-11's been able to, get rid of the grate. Use his, I don't know, what was it? His
like a welder.
Yeah. Some type of tool.
Plasma cutter.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. Open that grate, so they're able to escape, and that's when, like you said, Din Djarin's like, leave me. But IG-11 stays behind, and he's able to take off his helmet because he's not a living thing, so it doesn't count.
Right, yeah.
He can take off his helmet in front of droids. So, and then IG-11 uses some Bacta spray to start healing. It's going to take a few minutes, but you'll be okay.
Yeah.
So then they are able to escape with him through the tunnels. And they end up going back to the armorer, that room where she's forging all the armor for Mandalorian earlier in the season.
They go down there. I wonder if he was expecting to find the covert there.
Kind of sounded like it was.
And everyone, because of course when he gets down there, instead of allies, he finds piles of armor, right?
Yeah.
Which was pretty shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of those didn't survive that earlier episode when they come to help him out, to help him escape. A lot of them didn't survive. Some did, some escaped.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of them didn't, which is...
Yeah, and what did... were they all... I forget the name, but basically the youth, the what do they call
The
it?
foundlings.
The foundlings, yeah. Was it a pile of armor, a foundling armor, or was it just
No, it was just regular
armor?
warriors. Yeah.
So they find the armor, and she says that they basically did escape,
Mm-hmm.
but she's still there.
Yeah.
Now, why do you think she was still there?
She said she was she was doing something with the armor that was already the pile there. She was melting it down because I don't know if they had Beskar. Maybe if they did have Beskar, she'd want to recycle that and use it. But she was doing something. Maybe it was like a burial type thing.
Okay.
But they're just there, kind of clean it up when they showed up and
covering their tracks, maybe. I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah, it could be. And this is where we get the story about how he saved Baby Yoda. Baby Yoda saved him. So now they're a clan of two. And she creates that Mudhorn signet and gives it to Din for his armor.
Which was pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool symbol.
Yeah.
And then she tells him a story about how way back when the Mandalorians fought the Jedi, this group of sorcerers. And Din's like, well, they were enemies? They're our enemies? And she's like, well, they were, but this Baby Yoda isn't, because different time. And it was interesting because she talked about the Jedi as a group, like a race or a group of people that because we know the Jedi is as they pull people from different planets, from different races, different peoples, different cultures, and then they become the Jedi. So they're like a mixture of things. But she views the Jedi as a group in and of itself, kind of like the Mandalorians see themselves.
Yeah,
because they're different people, different cultures as well.
Yeah. Does he call them wizards? Does he use the term?
I think so, yeah.
Wizards?
Yeah.
Or something to that effect.
Space wizards.
Space wizards, space magic.
Yeah.
But same thought. I had that same thought. But like a religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
More or less.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that he needed, she tasks him that he needs to return Baby Yoda to his people,
his kind.
Yeah. Not necessarily his race or species, but these people who have these same abilities. Obviously, there's a ton of history there that they can't go into, but it's interesting that Din doesn't really have an understanding of these Jedi because based off of timeline wise and if he was alive during the Clone Wars, you would think that he would have a much better knowledge of the Jedi.
At least know who they are.
I've heard of them.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that only 5 years after Return of the Jedi, even maybe, and this is just me speculating, but the Jedi aren't vast in numbers, but the stories and the sagas tend to follow this group, which we may incorrectly assume that they're represented more, but maybe it's just not so much, and a lot of people really don't know about the Jedi. They've just kind of heard about them, and they're really not sure what they do or can or cannot do. But we're so knowledgeable because that's what the stories focus on. Yeah. So we maybe operate under the false pretense that everyone would know them, but a lot of people are like, there's probably most people in the universe have probably never even seen a Jedi, right?
Right.
They only hear stories.
Yeah.
But you would think Din would have, in his lifetime, come across, some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'd be like, well, why was there this war
Right.
with these robots, these droids? What was that about? And, well, the Jedi and the clone, that would be part of the explanation, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, he would have been alive during the Purge.
Yeah.
You would think he would have heard of General Kenobi and his association with, Satine and Bo-Katan, but obviously, he
doesn't.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, we don't know that he doesn't, but
He was surprised when he heard, like, wizards? What?
Yeah.
And he didn't realize that when he saw that Grogu could do things with his mind, he didn't put it together that, oh, that's the Force. He must be a Jedi or something.
Right. Yeah.
That was news to him.
Yeah. So, kind of bit of a head scratcher on that one. Wow. But, we don't really know much about his backstory and where he's been or what he's been doing.
Yeah.
If he's even been on Mandalore, and if he has, how long he was there and when he was there. Was he there before the Purge? Was he ever there at all? Or did he just kind of join this covert but always worked as a bounty hunter his entire life? And, don't know.
I think they raised him, this group, this religious sect that isn't the main part of Mandalore.
He wasn't part of Death Watch, right?
No. Well, that's interesting because Death Watch rescued him.
Right.
So what happened next?
Yeah. You would assume that they would have taken him in, and they would have come. They are there. It shows him being rescued by this group. If after all of the droids are killed or destroyed, the Death Watch would have gathered the survivors and taken them with them.
Yeah, like, hey, join us.
Yeah.
Because he was a foundling at that point.
Exactly. So he had to have had some interaction with them, and then he eventually saw what they were doing and was like, I don't want anything to do with that, and he left.
Yeah.
But kind of found a new covert that aligned with something more than what he believed. And maybe in season 3 we'll learn more about that.
Yeah, I think we will. I mean, hopefully. It's a big part of what's, hey, what's this guy's backstory?
Yeah. And for me, as a fan, those are the things that interest me, right? Those are the things. It's the backstories. It's the character development. Those are the things that interesting, and how it all ties together. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So she tasks him, like you said, with, hey, you got to find his people, return him to his people, and she also gives him the Rising Phoenix jetpack.
Yeah.
He's like, I used it when I was a kid, but I'm not an expert at it. But he takes it anyway, and she tells him, hey, you guys got to go to this boat down the river. You'll be able to escape. So they go to the lava boat, and they all get in and head down there, and they realize, there's these troopers waiting for us. So IG-11. This part I was kind of rolling my eyes. Another trope. He's like, I have to sacrifice myself for you guys, so the baby Yoda can live and survive. That's my mandate, just to keep him safe.
Yeah.
And so he sacrifices himself, and it's like this big dramatic music, and everyone's like, no, you can't go.
Yeah.
You'll die. And
all
of
a sudden, Din's got
alive.
this emotional attachment to a droid.
Yeah.
And, when he's hated all droids up until
the whole
point.
season.
Yeah.
Doesn't like him.
Yeah.
So.
And hates IG-11. But now he finally is like, you can't. You just can't do it.
Yeah.
Like
Like they've been besties for
years. Yeah. That's just kind of.
That was funny.
Yeah.
Like, okay. And he's a droid, so I don't really have an emotional attachment to this guy. I mean, cool. He's been funny. He's had some good one-liners this last episode. He's voiced by Taika Waititi, so
yeah,
he's got that type of humor that we've seen in the Thor movies.
Yeah.
Which I think in small bits is great.
Yep.
As long as it's not the plot. But so the droid sacrifices itself, and they're able to get out. But then Moff Gideon shows up, flying this TIE fighter, and starts firing on him. So Din puts the jet back on and flies up and is able to shoot a cable, attach him to the TIE fighter, and then blows off one of the wings, and the TIE fighter crashes. So did you think Gideon was dead at this point?
Well,
initially?
I mean, no, I didn't, because it's Star Wars, right? And I mean, it certainly could. He certainly could have been. I mean, he could have been dead, and we were hoping for a season 2, and at the when this originally came out, because the story. So as far as we know, the next chapter or the next series would and could have been just a new whole plot of him, looking and finding a Jedi to give Baby Yoda to, and what that entailed, and could have been more or less kind of about him, trying to find him, and then once he did, how does he interact with them, and does he find a friendly Jedi,
Yeah.
or maybe he doesn't. Who knows, and of course, it's like, whoa, what, the only Jedi we know walking around, right, is Luke. So is season 2 going to be him looking for Luke? You just, you don't know, you really don't know. But so I wasn't sure, I wasn't sure. It certainly could have gone both ways.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't have surprised me if he was alive, not at all.
Yeah. So Mando goes back, gets Grogu, and says his goodbyes to Cara Dune and Grief, and they're going to stay there and build up the bounty hunter business there, the guild, and he's going to go off and try and track down a Jedi to find, give him back.
What did you think about him flying around with the jetpack like he just was a pro at it?
Yeah.
When he'd never really done it before.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the first time I was like, well, he learned that pretty fast. But this rewatch, I noticed he didn't really do much. Like he shot himself up, straight up, shot his cable, and then he didn't really fly around. No. When he let go, he fell most of the way and was able to kind of land himself gracefully. So it wasn't like he was flying around.
So I think the first time I remember when I first watched it, I was just like, he seems to be doing pretty well with that jetpack, having never used one before. Yeah. But when they reference he may have used one once or twice before when he was young, I don't know. But I was surprised at how well he was able to use it. Because I would imagine, well, if I had put on a jetpack for the first time, I'm pretty sure I would crashed and died pretty quickly.
That's a good point. I think even what he did was still a lot for not having done it for 20, 30 years.
But, maybe those, it's those things when on a rewatch when you're like, you're like, okay, the first time I watched this, I thought this was kind of like a little, okay, whatever. But, maybe you're like, well, I guess maybe it wasn't as what I remember. Maybe it's not as good as I thought it was when I first watched it. But but, he said something, and this was another thing. When they're in the saloon and they're trying to escape, they can't get through that grate, and he says he doesn't have any charges left or any. And you're like, but then when he attaches himself to the TIE fighter, he has these grenade charges things that he attaches to it. Where did those come from?
Okay, yeah. So when they go, yes, that's a good point. But when they go to talk to their armorer, she's like, "Go resupply your munitions."
Okay, there you go. Yeah. Glad you mentioned that.
Okay. So that makes sense then.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad the writers made sure to address that.
I'm sure that was we said this. I'm sure that was a last minute addition.
Those little continuity. I'm pretty forgiving on, things like that. It's like, okay, whatever. They don't have to, any show I watch, they don't have to show every little thing. I can fill in gaps. I can be like, well, maybe he found him on the, maybe sometime, they don't have to show everything that happens in order for me to believe that, like they could have been like, well, when he was walking through the tunnel, he grabbed some and picked them up. I can make those leaps. Those are pretty easy. Yeah. But I know for some people,
it's a sticking point.
Those things are huge sticking points. Yeah.
So
what happens next?
Yeah, the big reveal that everybody was freaking out about. Either they knew what it was or they had no clue what it was.
Right.
So they pan back to the TIE fighter and you hear this lightsaber ignition, and then this thing comes out, cuts out this doorway of the TIE fighter, and Gideon kicks it out, and he comes walking out with this black sword thingy.
Yeah.
I knew it was the Darksaber, so I was like pretty astounded by that.
Uh-huh.
He kind of stands on top of the TIE fighter and poses with it, hero pose. It was a pretty cool moment. So I was excited about that. For you, did you have an idea what that was?
I did not. Admittedly, not a huge watcher of the animated series. So, I kind of, do my best to kind of fill in the gaps. But I had not a clue. you know. So obviously, once I saw that, I had to do a bunch of research.
I think you guys texted me. It was like, so what's this
yeah.
saber thing?
Yeah. Well, did we not watch that episode together on the first time we watched it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, because I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, what's, you know, next thing I was all over the internet,
Yeah.
you know, searching the Darksaber.
Yeah.
But yeah, now I'm an expert, right?
Yeah.
No, not even, but yeah. But definitely. So when you first saw it, though, obviously the Darksaber in is it Clone Wars or Rebels that it's more in?
Probably Clone Wars.
Okay, so in the when you saw it reveal itself, I mean, the Darksaber was not a big plot point in the series, right? It was just, you know, different characters had it.
Yeah,
but
another cool weapon.
Yeah, but there was never any kind of like storyline attached to it or hinging on it.
No, it was
just
part of the story in
Yeah.
some episodes, but yeah, it wasn't like R2 with the Death Star plans type thing.
Right. Yeah. It was just, well, he's got the Darksaber. That's cool. And when you saw it, you immediately thought what though?
How did he get that?
Okay, because
Where's that been for the last 30 years?
Because the best of your knowledge, the last person who had it was who?
Yeah, so Sabine in Rebels, which is a few years before A New Hope, Sabine gets it and she gives it to Bo-Katan.
Okay.
As a symbol of leadership for the Mandalorian people, because that was kind of one of the plot points of the Darksaber, was that it is a symbol of their leadership, and if you have it, then you can be the leader. Kind of like a crown type thing. If you own this, then you're the man, or you're the leader. And so they gave it to Bo-Katan, and she was going to lead the people, because Bo-Katan is also the sister of the previous leader, Satine. So they made that connection and gave it to her. But that was pre A New Hope, and then we didn't really hear anything about it after that. So we don't know what happened after that. So all of a sudden it's there.
You know, it just kind of, if anything, especially with you, it cemented that, you know, that Moff Gideon was there at the Purge, and that's probably where he got it from.
Yeah, he got it from Bo-Katan
Somehow he got it from Bo-Katan, which made you wonder, though, at this point, is Bo-Katan alive, right? Because when we're watching this show, we don't know, right? Because the last time we see Bo-Katan, she's what?
In Rebels.
She's in Rebels.
She's the leader of Mandalore, because everyone accepts that. So I assumed she was dead, because if you defeat someone, you have to defeat someone to get it, basically.
Kind of like Harry Potter and the
Yeah, kind of.
the Elder Wand.
Yeah. So I assumed she was dead at this point.
Yeah.
Or captured maybe at best.
So did you see it though? Were you thinking, oh, we might see, you know, Bo-Katan
not at this point
in season 2?
Not
or
initially.
Are you just like, she must be dead. But there's got to be a tie-in somewhere. When you saw it, they're like, maybe he'll go to Mandalore in season 2, and we'll see. Because why would you bring that weapon?
Exactly.
Unless you have some sort of future plot storyline to go with it, right? Because that was a big, you know, reveal at the end of
they didn't need to include that unless they were going to do something with it.
Could have been any saber, right?
Yeah, could have been blaster.
Yeah, whatever. But the fact that they introduced that saber makes you go, oh, this is taking an interesting direction.
Yeah, and I thought, well, that's a Mandalorian weapon. The show is the Mandalorian. Din's going to end up with it at some point, and he's going to be the leader of Mandalore. That's kind of what my first thought process was. Was that, because why else would you bring a weapon that signifies the leadership of Mandalore?
That has such a deep-seated tie to Mandalore, right?
Yeah.
With Tar Vizsla being, you know, the person who created it. He was a Jedi. He was a Mandalore, right? So obviously with that introduction of the Darksaber, you know, you've got some, you know, we've got to probably ultimately, hopefully, we'll see Din Djarin go to Mandalore and we see what the situation is. But do you think Din Djarin is the kind of person who would take on the role of a leader? I don't see it personally.
See it. Yeah. So that was another question. I was like, well, he He wants to be left alone, basically.
Yeah, he's a loner.
Yeah.
I don't see him
Don't see him as a leader.
taking up the veil or the leadership role. You know that.
Yeah. Well, that could be his story, like his journey, his character arc is he's this loner guy, and then he becomes the leader of his people.
Yeah.
That could be it. I don't think it's too far-fetched, but it would take a lot for that to happen at this point.
Yeah, I just don't see that mantle being resting on his shoulders. But I don't see him like. I just don't know. I don't know. So we'll see what we'll see what the next. Obviously season 2's out. Obviously we've watched it. Obviously we're at this point in time at the recording of this episode, and we're waiting for our episode or season 3 to come out. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah, I'm excited for it. We've seen the trailer. Definitely watch it if you haven't already. So final thoughts on this season, as far as not only this episode but how it tied up the season for you and all that.
Again, I believe this was the first live action TV series that Disney did, and I think it was a home run. And I know a lot of people got engaged in it, including my wife, who is a Star Wars fan, but it doesn't, probably on nowhere near on the level I am, and even then I'm, not, I'm not. I don't live and eat and breathe Star Wars, but it definitely, I'm definitely a fan, and it definitely brought a lot of people back to the universe.
Got a lot of people excited
about the series, where the prequels, it seemed to divide a lot of fans. Even when I watched them, and we've talked about this in the past. At the end of the day, they're great movies. It's anything in the universe is enjoyable to watch, as I iterated for reasons previously. But sometimes when you're an adult, trying to think that you're going to watch a movie and get those same experiences you did when as a kid, you're not going to, because you're not a kid anymore.
Right.
Your brain, it works differently.
It's different.
Your life, your view of life and how it works is different, and you tend to be you're not as innocent.
Well, do you feel like this show brought you close to that more than previously?
It certainly brought me to a different universe, because as an adult watching the Star Wars episodes, there's plot. There are times when I think to myself, when they show Jedi using the Force, right? It's just almost getting to the point now where sometimes I can't. This idea creeps into my mind as they introduce more and more Force powers and things, which I don't necessarily have a problem with, but like I start thinking that is the Force, are they showing the Force in such a way that they're going down a path that would start making you question on whether or not that it's overpowered? You know what I mean? Because it's kind of like, well, if someone with the Force had the wherewithal and the foresight, they could like turn, when a Jedi could just, when they're fighting a Sith Lord, could just turn the lightsaber on when it's still attached to their belt, and cut their leg off or something, or they could just, or when they're fighting them, when they come down with a blow, they could use the Force to turn their lightsaber off so it doesn't block it, and they could just cut through them. You start going down those paths of like, well, you could use the Force to do pretty much anything, and if that's the case, someone who's pretty smart could find them using the Force, could find themselves pretty much out of anything. Whereas before, when you're a kid and it's innocent, it's just kind of like this ambiguous. It's more ambiguous. You could use it to like not move objects, but it really more was an internal thing. To me, it was just like allowed you to maybe be more personally agile and more personally, your athleticism, your abilities, your personal physical abilities, you were more in tune with the Force, it enhanced your physical abilities. Where now it's kind of become more of this thing where it's like another weapon in your holster that you can use.
Yeah.
And is it so I could go on and on. So getting away from that, the point is that I appreciated a story in the Star Wars universe where the Force wasn't there, and you could just see normal people
Outside of Baby Grogu.
Yeah.
Baby Yoda.
Yeah, exactly. But it wasn't about the Force,
Yeah.
right? The hero was, could be, it's kind of like, when people talk about superheroes and Batman versus Superman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Batman, he doesn't
Just
have
a
any
guy.
superpowers. He's just a guy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I can appreciate that. Whereas, I love Superman, but, for some people, it's just kind of like, well, I mean, if you wanted to, you could basically say Superman can do anything, and if he can do anything, then what's the threat? Yeah. So to me, I'm kind of looking forward to. That's what I appreciated this show, because it wasn't about a chosen one and of the Force, and it was just kind of like more brought it down to my level,
More relatable.
more relatable,
Yeah.
and I could be like, wow, wouldn't this be a cool universe to live in? To a certain degree, that's why I appreciated it.
Yeah. I definitely agree with that. That line of thinking is, the Jedi are cool, and I would love to see a series about the Jedi, and maybe Jedi versus Sith or something. But at the same time, these type of stories are just as interesting in different ways. They're more character driven. They're more, like you said, personable, because they're relatable. So definitely has its place, and I want to see more of these type of stories. Like Ahsoka's coming out, and that's going to be more Jedi focus, Force users and stuff, which is great. But there's got to be a balance, and I think with the movies we got so much Jedi, so much Force, that it's good to have this to counterbalance it.
Yeah, I mean, the original trilogy, you had the Emperor, and you had Darth Vader, and then you had Luke, and that was it. Though, as far as we knew, those were the only people left in existence who had these Force abilities, right? And as far as we knew, they would be the only ones going on, and maybe they would pass on what they had learned to an individual, but there would not be an army of Jedis, an army of Sith Lords. And it's cool to think that way, but it's kind of like, I can appreciate, there's a part of me that appreciates that they don't make it, that they keep it less common, and they keep it like, okay, only one or two people. It's this ancient thing, and it created a lot of problems back when a lot more people could use it.
Yeah.
And now it's just kind of unique where there's only just one person, And in the new trilogy, when Skywalker says it's time for the Jedi to go away, I mean, when I first heard that, I was just kind of like, how dare he? But now I'm almost kind of like, I can, in some sense of the form, I can appreciate that, because it sounds like, it seems like you have to have balance, right? And if you're going to have someone with on the dark side using the Force for nefarious purposes, then you've got to have someone, you have to have the opposite. But, and so maybe it's good that maybe the Force only comes around or gets more powerful or attaches itself to individuals who have the ability to use it when it's needed, because someone on the other side is using it for nefarious purposes.
Right.
But when no one has it, it keeps everything equal, right?
Yeah, that is a theory from the prequels, why Anakin needed to be born, why there needed to be a chosen one, is because Darth Sidious was so powerful.
Yeah.
So there had to be that balance.
Yeah.
And if those things are gone, then is there a need for the Force to have Jedi? If there's no evil Sith Lord or whatever, evil Force users, do we need to have the Jedi at all?
Right.
That's a good question.
Yeah. But I'm excited, at this point in time, Andor is going to be coming out soon. It was more, they're basically not a trailer, but basically a trailer.
Yeah.
But that looked really interesting, right?
Yeah. No Force users.
No Force users.
It's about the Republic, the Empire.
Yeah. And
I guess it's not about it's about the formation, the start of the Republic, or the rebellion.
Start of the rebellion,
leads
right?
to the Republic.
Yeah.
That one looks good.
It looks good, and the production value, and the production value looks really good, right? I'm beginning, and maybe it's just showing my age, but I'm beginning to appreciate. When I was a kid, every kid wanted to be Luke Skywalker and be the chosen one. But now I'm an adult, I'm like, it's not really, I just want to see, because I don't know that I would fit into that world. So I want to see the world that I could fit in, which is, to me, where I would be.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So as far as this show and how I thought there was some great moments throughout the series, and the technology that they developed for this series, the volume or whatever, I forget what they also, there's another name for it, but the way they're able to show backgrounds and not have it just be green screen that they have to act against, but have these environments. It brought a sense of realism to this show that was needed. It still kind of felt small a lot of times, because a lot of times they were in this town of Navarro, and there wasn't there was world hopping, but they go to this place and it would just be some kind of self-contained.
Yeah.
So there were some limitations, but I didn't mind it so much.
Yeah,
I thought it was still well done.
One thing you enjoy about the movies is there's a lot of space scenes, right?
Yeah.
And we didn't see a lot of that.
Right.
Yeah. So the expanse or the spans of the universe isn't really illustrated.
Yeah.
Or represented that much in these episodes, because we don't see a lot of, and I think that's part of, trying to deliver a product where it's as realistic, props, realistic effects, getting away from the green screen. But we do know that they've, filmed this using a large kind of panoramic,
the volume
and TV screens, which is kind of like an enhanced game engine, basically, that they designed this off of. And I thought that was amazing, and probably provides a great, will definitely have an impact on future TV and movie making, as that technology gets advanced, and they could be in giant rooms now, warehouse sized rooms, with all the walls 60 feet tall with backgrounds lit on them, and
there's a lot of potential.
Yeah, a lot of potential, because CGI is just so obviously CGI.
Yeah. It has its place, but it gets overused, I believe.
Yeah. So enhancing something, I think, is great, but relying on it 100%, where you basically have two actors in a giant room covered in green or blue screen, I think that's, including the floor they're walking on, and their entire environment is just hard. CGI. It's just so obvious nowadays. It was kind of a nuanced thing, I think, as they developed it and got it better, but but practical effects, I think, is where really it's at, and I loved it. But I enjoyed it, and I look forward, as they continue to film these TV shows. I hope they keep producing more.
Yep. Yeah, so overall, I give this episode high marks. I give it a 9 out of 10. It was fun to watch, especially the first time. The second time was good.
Yeah.
And it got me excited to start up season 2.
Yeah, for a rewatch, right?
Yeah. And we will be doing that next. So stay tuned for our review of season 2, episode. Well, I guess not really episode 1. It's like episode 9, right? Chapter 9. I think they just continued with the sequential numbers of it. So we'll be reviewing chapter 9 as the Mandalorian goes out to search for a Jedi to find Baby Yoda, his people, and return him. And we'll see how that journey goes.
Yeah. And hopefully we'll have these done before season 3.
The goal is to wrap it up before season 3
comes out, which is in next year,
February
of next year. Yeah.
2023.
Yeah. All right. Exciting.
Yep. So thanks, guys, for joining us. Once again, subscribe to our channel, like the video, comment on the video, all that stuff that all these YouTubers say. But it definitely helps us out, and we appreciate you guys watching and being a part of this journey. So thanks, guys, and may the Force be with you.
Have a good one.